Hey guys, welcome to the True Blue Riffcast with your hosts, Jeremy and Dave. My name is Christine DeBelle, but many of you know me as Susan from A Talking Cat. And as you know, I have to go and get my cheese puffs out of the oven. So have a great time with Jeremy and Dave. See you soon.
Thanks, Christine. This is the True Blue Riffcast, the number one RiffTrax podcast in the world. I am Jeremy, and with me, as always, is...
Hey, everybody, I'm Dave. I want to thank Christine for introducing the show to us. We use this service called Cameo to get these people to come in and say our names and stuff like that. Spoiler alert, they're not really our friends. I was just looking at them and be like, well, who else could we get to introduce the show? Because we've had Greg Sestero and Christine, because Jeremy usually takes care of that. It's just been those two, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking, and there's not a whole lot of RiffTrax related people on there. So I was scouring around, and I saw some cool people like Zordon from Power Rangers is $25. I was like, oh, that's a steal. But recently, Carol Baskin, who we've talked about.
Carol Baskin,
who we've talked about on the podcast. I mean, like, that's related. It's related to the podcast, at least. And I was like, oh, let's do that. She wants $199.
Nope.
And I'm like, no. It would have been funny if I give you like $50 and like, oh, hey, True Blue Riffcast, blah, blah, blah. But lady, look, you killed your husband. I'm not paying you $200 to introduce my podcast, okay?
No. Nope.
It's just... How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Dave. I'm slightly traumatized.
From what?
From having to watch the newest release from RiffTrax that we're going to be talking about quite a bit today. Lycan Colony.
Lycan Colony. Now, in the days preceding this, I mean, and we'll get to it. They were the RiffTrax social media feeds, run by our friend Peter Hunter and Kevin Murphy himself, but not Mike Nelson. He's famously not on social media anymore because, screw that.
He's the smartest.
Yeah, that really is the best policy at this point. But they were like, oh, wait, everybody. We're on Friday. There's going to be something that makes Roller Gator looks like Citizen Kane. That's like not an exact quote, but it's near. And everyone's like, oh, what could be? Because there's this anti-Roller Gator vein. This podcast, especially me in particular, very famously pro-Roller Gator. But I know there's like vast amount of people out there who hate Roller Gator. And I love Roller Gator. And I'm like, well, of course there's something out there that's worse than Roller Gator. Bill said on Twitter in 2015 that Roller Gator is hands down the worst thing they've ever done. And they found something that's worse. And Jeremy, you remarked to me that it is the second worst thing you've watched all the way through, right?
Yes, it is the second worst movie I've ever seen.
What's the first?
The Amazing Bulk.
The Amazing Bulk. I despise that movie. RiffTrax, if you're listening, don't ever do The Amazing Bulk. I don't ever want to see that movie ever again.
No, do not ever release that movie. That'd be like watching Oblivion again.
I think it'd be way worse than watching Oblivion again. Anyway, but so we got other things to talk about before that, I suppose. Do we?
Yeah.
You tell me.
Well, not before it, but we will have an interesting story after it. A story that kind of, I don't know, it's like our origin story.
Yeah, well, I mean, the origin story of us being friends a little bit,
yes.
I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
So stay tuned for that. It is RiffTrax related. It's weird. It's a very famous story, but it's also not a famous story. It occupies that weird space. We've referenced it many times in the fact that I refuse to talk about it on the podcast. And,
yep.
I'm finally relenting, and we're gonna do it. We're maybe not a deep dive, but I'm gonna tell the story about what happened.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I'm sure some of you have probably wondered what the heck he's going on about.
And a bunch of you already know what this is about. Yeah, I would say probably about half our audience knows what we're talking about right now, and the other half is like, "What are you talking about?"
Right, and they'll find out shortly.
Yeah.
But first, we actually have some movie news to talk about.
Yes, that's right. Why don't you go ahead and start? Because I have some movie news. Not sure if it's the same. We coordinate. This is a great show. Great way to prep. But you do yours first. And if it's the same movie news, then I will say, oh, that's the same movie news. But if it's not, I'll wait till you're done and I'll do my movie news. Okay, go ahead. Go. And go.
Headlines.
So my bit of movie news is about the long-awaited release of the live-action Mulan from Disney.
Really?
They are releasing the movie in theaters and on demand on September 4th.
Really? Wow.
Yes. So if you want to watch it in theaters, you'll be able to go do that. Otherwise, you will be able to watch it on the new Disney Plus Premier Access.
How much does that cost? I mean, I have Disney Plus, but
Well, the movie itself is going to cost $30.
Yeah, go to the movies.
For you, that's not, that's not a good deal.
No, it's not. If it's just for me, yeah. But for you, I'm guessing, because you have 9 kids.
Now, I have 3, and probably only one would be going with us to go see it in theaters, because it is rated PG-13, so it's a little more intense for my younger ones. But, and I know we mentioned this when we talked about that other Trolls movie, but I mean, this is a good deal for me, because $30, when I can sit at home and watch it whenever I want, and I can pause it if, we get distracted by one of the kids, or somebody has to go to the bathroom, or somebody wants to get a drink or something, and we don't have to pay for concessions and all that crap.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I think the movies themselves are probably, I don't know, I'm just talking out of my butt right now, but I think probably at the movies, the movies themselves are the loss leaders probably, and where they make all their money is every person's got to pay $20 if they want to eat. Or if they want a snack, it's crazy time. So I imagine concessions is probably where they make their real money.
Oh, definitely. Especially, they charge, $6 for a large pop that costs them 30 cents.
If we're going to get into this conversation about going to the movies, let's get into it. I feel like if I'm there, I might as well just have the whole movie experience, and I don't really feel bad when I'm at the concession stand. It's gosh, I just paid $12 for popcorn and a drink.
Right.
But after it's usually after, or a week later or something, or when I'm not at the movies and you sit there and you think about it and you're like, that's a huge ripoff. But they got to make their money somehow.
And you don't mind it while you're there.
Because you don't mind it while you're there at all. Yeah,
part of the experience. If you don't get a snack or even just a drink, it feels weird.
Oh yeah, if I don't have one of those ridiculous, because you know what a large is like at the movie theaters. They're huge.
It's like a gallon.
And I don't know. Do you ever finish your popcorn at the movies?
I always finish my drink, but I never finish my popcorn.
I know. I usually usually when I'm leaving RiffTrax Live, I'll usually take my drink with me, because the drink is always, it's always iced down by the end of it. And you know what it's like at the, after a really good RiffTrax Live, was the last really really good one. I know Giant Spider Invasion was awesome, but what was the last one that we left where you're just oh my gosh, that was just so incredibly amazing and awesome. I don't know. I kind of feel that way after all of them, but I think...
Yeah, I do too, pretty much.
But I think the... I'm always super amped. So I guess I just kind of answered my own question there. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
every one of them. But like for me, it's like if I don't have a drink during RiffTrax, like I always get super thirsty. You know, my mouth gets dry and I'm laughing so much, and it's like I need a drink.
I'm going to make a confession here, and it's kind of one of those hashtag sorry not sorry things. And it kind of goes to like what a garbage person I am at the movies. Oh, people hate going to no, people still invite me to go to the movies, but like people get so annoyed with me at the movies. They'll like tell me to like stop that. I'm like, no, right? So RiffTrax Live is like the only theater experience where I like won't have my cell phone out the whole time. Because
you're just the worst, Dave.
I am. It's just I am, dude. Dude. My theater manners are awful. I mean, I don't get on the phone. I just like to sit there and text and speak loudly. It's awesome. And I don't care. Thing is, I don't care. I don't care, and that's what like I know it. And the people I go to the movies with hate that I don't like that. I think that annoys them more. That they know that I know, and I don't care.
Yeah. So September 4th, Mulan, Disney Plus, and in whatever theaters happen to be open at that point in time.
Yeah.
Across the country. And I take it, since you didn't tell me that it was the same movie news, that it's not the same movie news.
It's not the same movie news, but it's similar. And it's sort of from the same company, sort of. This is a whole different conversation, but I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks recently, and I wanted to listen to the audiobook of Catcher in the Rye, which is the worst book in the history of the world. But listening to this audiobook is so like it's a whole different experience than actually reading Catcher in the Rye, because the guy puts on the Holden voice. It's being like, oh, these dumbasses. It's so ironical. It's handshaking is the phoniest thing ever. That's what this audiobook sounds like. And I'm like, this man was on the cover of Time magazine. Anyway,
who was reading it?
I don't know, some guy.
Just some
Salinger.
person.
My guess is that Salinger doesn't want audiobooks of his stuff to exist. I mean, he's dead now, but he was famously an asshole. And it shows too. And he liked to chase underage girls, but that's a whole different thing. But an ad came on, and it was for New Mutants, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting a trailer for a new movie. This is amazing. And it said in theaters August 28th or whatever, and I was like, what? So it's but then I realized, oh, it's just New Mutants, and it has what's her face, and it has like the only reason I would like maybe want to go see it is because it has what's her face from Game of Thrones, and then I realized I don't care about Game of Thrones anymore anyway. It's been a year, and it's just like that's the thing about we've talked about on this podcast before. It's that last year we had the grand finale of Star Wars sequel trilogy, Marvel, and Game of Thrones. And it's kind of amazing. Game of Thrones in particular, how it all just kind of like vanished off the face of pop culture. Like Game of Thrones. Like, when was the last time you heard anybody talking about Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire? It's not a thing anymore. I mean, at least Lost kind of lingered, and it's been 10 years since Lost had its big finale. It's been a decade. That's crazy. And Lost is also RiffTrax related because there's a riff of the
pilot episode.
The pilot episode, 2007. Kevin and Mike. But anyway, back to New Mutants and not Game of Thrones. I was just like, oh, I'm not going to see that. But it seems like we're kind of coming out of it a little bit. A little teeny tiny bit. I don't know. Fingers crossed. But at this point, I'm not underestimating hysteria, if that makes sense.
Right. I get you.
So we'll have more at the Academy Awards than Trolls World Tour, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Harley Quinn / Birds of Prey. Can you imagine what the Oscars are going to be like in 2021? It's gonna be those three movies. It's gonna be
It's not gonna be good.
It's gonna be Trolls World Tour, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Birds of Prey, and like, because those are the only movies that have come out this year.
Although didn't the one where Tom Hanks was Mr. Rogers, was that was this year, wasn't it?
No, that was last year. That was 2019.
Was it?
Yeah,
oh
they already.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Time. I don't know. I don't know what time anything is anymore.
I think it's a combination of the coronavirus effect and also that we're old now.
Yeah.
And
we mentioned that before.
Time doesn't mean anything to us anymore.
No. Not like it used to.
No.
Definitely not like it used to.
Like we've said, like Manos the Hands of Fate RiffTrax Live was 8 years ago.
That's gross.
And so was Birdemic RiffTrax Live.
That's gross too.
Same year. Anyway, let's not talk about years of RiffTrax past.
No.
Distant past. As Bill would say, only the ancients of the ancients would know things that happened at Nightmare at Noon, released in 2012. Let's talk about what was released last week from RiffTrax.
Yes. Let's talk about RiffTrax of the present, and let's dive into Lycan Colony, which was released, like Dave said, last week. It was Friday the 7th, and it's a date that will live in infamy. We've mentioned a couple times on the podcast that it's going to have to take something special to truly dethrone Suburban Sasquatch as the riff of the year. And if anything was going to come close to doing that.
Yeah.
It was Lycan Colony.
Yes. I think we're prone to hyperbole on this podcast sometimes.
Yes, very much so.
I think a lot of times...
Just like everybody is.
Yeah, we like to say, oh, this is the worst movie RiffTrax has ever done. I think we said that about... I don't know if we said that about Attack of the Super Monsters. That's like definitely one of the weirder ones.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we start off and be like, I don't know how to talk about this, or man, we have a lot to talk about. This one, I think everything about it is warranted. I had seen this movie before. I had heard about it from Best of the Worst from Red Letter Media did a spotlight episode of this movie a couple of years ago. And they did that with Suburban Sasquatch as well. So a lot of people are going to know Lycan Colony from that. But on the other hand, a lot of people aren't. It's kind of like our story later. Like, I think half the people are going to know about it, half the people aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd seen it before. I knew about like all the floating tattoos and messed up aspect ratios and just like, this is not really a movie, you guys. I suppose we can, I'll turn it over to Jeremy and he'll talk more about the plot a little bit. And I'll do my thing and I'll interrupt him every time I have something funny to say. So, Jeremy, take us through Lycan Colony, please.
Okay, so Lycan Colony. The movie starts off with a scene of a little boy running scared through the woods.
Didn't that remind you of like The Dark Power?
A little bit.
Yeah.
And it turns out that he's being chased by these 3 hunters. And the little boy falls down and they're standing over him with their shotguns and whatnot.
I'm sorry.
And
I'm laughing just thinking about this.
You start hearing some howling in the distance, and the hunter yells out, "If you want this little pup back, you're gonna."
Because they're werewolves.
Because they're werewolves. the little boy turns into a werewolf and attacks the guy. And, for being the first scene in the movie, it really sets the tone for what you're going to get quality-wise throughout the rest of it. Because they basically held a stuffed animal up to the guy's leg and he screamed and died. Man. And then we get the awesome title card in this.
That looks like it was done. It looks like it was done literally in Microsoft Word.
Yeah. Yeah, not Microsoft Paint. Microsoft Word.
Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
And it looks like someone screen recorded them like rolling up like this. Oh. Anyway, continue.
So we meet I don't know if he's the main character. I think he's supposed to be the main character, but
Who Dad Bod?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we meet the town doctor while his wife is like cutting a pepper in the kitchen, and
Oh God!
they call the son down the stairs.
Talking to his kid,
and he gets halfway down the stairs, and he just falls down the stairs. Like he just trips and just falls down the stairs. And the dad meets him at the bottom of the stairs and makes some dumb dad joke.
But you're like, "Hi, I cut into people's. I'm dangerously incompetent at my job. Come eat dinner."
Yeah,
This is the weirdest. Okay, this is the weirdest dinner ever because the mom clearly hates the dad's guts, and it'd be like, "You shouldn't respect your father. Here's why: he lobotomized the guy." And
he showed up drunk.
Yeah. And they still let him do brain surgery. Yeah. And then doesn't she cut her hand?
Yeah, she cuts her finger. Yeah. And it's a very, it looks a lot like it from an infomercial. It's cutting
really
peppers
bad.
Just too hard. There's got to be a better way. Like that's what it looks like. And she's going off the whole time about how incompetent and terrible her husband is,
and he's right there. If I was like, honey, I'm right here.
She would have just been like, I know, I see you.
Like you suck. I hate everything you stand for. Then why are you cooking me dinner, you harpy? It's like
she's mad that they're in this little town that instead of the big city in their nice house that they used to have and all this stuff. And she yells at the husband to take the garbage out because it's overflowing.
Garbage day.
Yeah. Oh no. Garbage night.
Garbage night.
The actual
That's
riff.
The actual riff. Who's that, Bill? Yeah.
Yeah. And so the dad takes out the garbage, and this guy comes up behind him and scares him. And it turns out it's his sponsor for AA, and he hasn't gone to a meeting in a while. And he's like, "No, you got to come to the meeting tonight.
Remember,
if you don't, I'm not going to be your sponsor anymore." Yeah.
It's like, good. I don't want you to be my sponsor, you weirdo.
So they go to the AA meeting where there's some poor attempts at humor, with a whole, must be something in the water. And then it shows literally every person in the meeting taking a drink out of their cup, which does actually come into play story-wise a little bit later. And it's not just a dumb joke. It's just a dumb plot point.
Like hard. It's stupid screenwriting. Yeah.
Yeah. So they leave the AA meeting, and his sponsor says, "I'm going to take you to get a cup of coffee. Let's go get a cup of coffee and talk."
At this bar.
It's at a bar, yeah. And we have the what do they call him? The worst Hooters waitress ever. We have what is that guy? Was that Zev? Was that the guy's name?
I don't know. It's really
creepy.
It's really stupid. It's stupid name roulette is what it is.
Yeah, I think one of the guys' names is like Dave or Doug or something. And
another guy's name is like Sephiroth or something.
Yeah, there's some normal names and some really dumb names. But they order their coffee, and the guy's sponsor mentions that they have some really great steaks there. And so Dr. Dan is like, yeah, I wish I could eat a steak. My wife's got me eating all healthy now. And so what do? They order steaks. And this other couple of people comes in. They're not a couple. They're brother and sister. But they come into the bar, and they're looking for their dad. And the waiter comes up all creepy like, and the girl asks him how the pork tenderloin is. Tender. As he leans in like he's gonna smell her hair or something.
Yeah,
and this is where we get the floating CGI tattoo that Dave mentioned a couple minutes ago on the back of the guy's neck, and Dr. Drunk recognizes it because he used to be a military doctor, and it just so happens that he was at the same base that their dad was in, who was the hunter from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. And so they all get together and they all start drinking and they had some weird instructor man where they had this gold watch that was like inscribed, be like, oh, this is like his catchphrase. They say his catchphrase.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, gosh, I wonder whatever happened to that guy. And the waiter has like a watch or something.
He's got a little gold watch.
Yeah, with that, literally like 2 seconds later, comes up. He has this watch that has that stuff inscribed on it, and they're like, "Where'd you get this watch?
Where'd you get that? That was my dad's watch. I found it." And so they grab him, and then we get the best line in the whole movie.
I think this probably defines the movie on a couple of ways, because it describes, number one, the obvious joke is that it describes what the movie is, but it's also the one thing that everybody is going to remember clearly from the movie. It's mistake.
Oh yeah, that's quite a line. They start fighting the guy, and then this is where things get really bizarro, because like the doctor tries to hide somewhere. Like they chase the guy off into the back, and he's like, "Yeah, where do you think all that good meat you're eating comes from?" And they ate their dad. Basically, is the thing. They open the cooler; it's full of body parts, and they see their dad's head in there, and they go to beat the guy up, and like literally all hell breaks loose. Like these other werewolves show up. There's like a whole nother bar upstairs from the bar or something. And like, it's so confusing what's actually happening. Meanwhile, we have Dr. Drunk's son, who's sitting up in his room, listening to his music. And
he has a girlfriend?
He's strumming his guitar. And somebody starts throwing pebbles at his window, and it's the girl that lives next door, and she just wanted to come over and introduce herself.
Yeah.
And then she starts like really coming onto him strong. And I'm like, oh boy, this better not be one of those movies. And thankfully she says she was just messing with him, and let's get out of here. And they sneak off out of the house, and they like run by the place where the AA meeting was before the dad goes in, and they just, happen to just miss each other. And they go playing and running around a graveyard where it sounds like there's more than two people running around, and there's like constant laughing through this whole scene that really kind of reminded me of the guitar noodling from Roller Gator in a weird way. And then there was also dialogue from supposedly the two characters, but it was over the laughter. So it was, again, just really confusing to tell what was actually happening. They end up on the ground together in front of some big gravestone, and they start making out, and she bites the teen in the chest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she bites him right in the chest. Yeah, that's kind of a...
And he's like, what happened?
Like,
And she's
she
like, sorry, I
bit
got too
you.
excited. And he's just like, oh, I guess we should probably go home now. Like, the guy sounds like he's on. Yeah, he's just like, oh, it kind of puts a damper on things, I guess.
Yeah,
We
I
should
don't
go
know.
home
It's just
now.
kind
Let's just
of gotta
leave.
get. Maybe I should get a tetanus shot or something since you're like a werewolf. I don't know. You gonna go run around in a lumber yard or something?
It's the movie doesn't get any better from here because I I don't want to give quite everything away with this
Yeah,
because some
let's.
of the
Yeah,
stuff in here is best experienced. But I want to talk about the the big confrontation scene and just where it takes place and how they filmed it. Because it's supposed to take place in the woods. They
Okay.
start off actually in the woods. So either they ran out of daylight and had to stop filming what they had, or they
Mhm.
just had to do reshoots. And instead of going back to the woods, they did it in front of a green screen with video, just B-roll of some woods. And they're like rolling around in front of this green screen. And it's just so just hilariously terrible.
Well, I think that like
you were just at the woods. You're in the woods again. Why?
I think that is
It's like trying to watch Samurai Cop, where after they got done filming, he shaved or he cut his hair, and then they needed to reshoot, so then he had to put a wig on.
Yeah, I think that's part of the larger problem in the movie, and that's just one of the more aggressive, let's say, examples of just how incompetently this movie was put together. Because I think, in addition to the story and the performances just being awful, the production, I mean, particularly like the editing of this movie is, to say it's bad is not good enough.
I would say abysmal.
It's like they mentioned this a few times in the riff. The aspect ratio keeps changing. Like it, everybody, it's like the cuts make no sense.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's not just something you would notice if you're an editing nerd. It really is like visually, dude. Just go get Lycan Colony and see this, and you'll see why everybody at RiffTrax is saying this is literally the worst movie we've ever done. I mean, at least with Roller Gator, you get some coherency.
Yeah, it's way more coherent than this.
I think everyone's big problem with Roller Gator is when you break it down. I think everyone's big problem with Roller Gator is the acoustic guitar, basically.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Like that's that doesn't really bother me. Now, I'm not saying Roller Gator is a good movie, but it's charming. It has lots of personality. I love it. It has really great, fun characters. It's super fun to watch. Lycan Colony is not. I kind of don't want to say this, but it's the truth but I also don't want to say it because I don't want people to not buy it because okay. Look, it's not fun to watch. You sit there and you watch it, and it's just like train wreck from start to finish. The reason you're watching it is because you're just so enthralled at just that. Like you're just enthralled at how incompetent and bad. Like how can a movie be this bad? Okay, let's say Roller Gator, not Roller Gator. I'm sorry, Birdemic. Hands down, like James Nguyen is far more competent with everything he does than the maker of Lycan Colony. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but how hard was that to say? Because
how hard was it to say for me?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not really that hard. at all. Like, okay, when you look at it objectively, and I guess we can use this as kind of like a segue. We're not done talking about Lycan Colony, but
Oh no, we'll come back to that.
yeah, we can use this as kind of like reference to the story we're going to talk about a little later. It's not hard for me to like swallow my pride and say, okay, James Nguyen's better than this guy, because it's just obvious that James Nguyen is better than this guy. You know, it doesn't hurt my feelings at all to state real facts. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, objectively, you put Birdemic up there, you put Lycan Colony up there, one against the other. Which is better, and which director, editor, whatever guy did a better job? James Nguyen did a better job at everything than what this guy did at Lycan Colony. He just did.
Birdemic is definitely, it's objectively a better movie than Lycan Colony.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's a good movie. It's objectively better than Lycan Colony. I don't know if Lycan Colony really is a movie. I don't know, man. I would say I had this idea of like I would like scroll through the list of official RiffTrax on riffwiki.net. It's like, okay, which is worse, Roller Gator or Lycan Colony?
Lycan Colony.
I can't think of anything that could be on this list of almost 500 movies that would be worse than Lycan Colony. A talking cat, better than Lycan Colony.
No. Yes, definitely. Everything would be better than Lycan Colony. And no matter what riff you brought up, it would be better than Lycan Colony.
Okay, look. I'll just stop and we'll just stop at one randomly here. Fever Lake. Better than Lycan Colony. Well, Fever Lake actually has really, really good production value, so that's a kind of a bad example. Not to say that Fever Colony. Not to say that Fever Lake is good. Curse of Bigfoot.
Better than Lycan Colony.
Better than Lycan Colony. Yeah, I was just like, I almost said, no, better than Lycan Colony.
It's
so Lycan Colony.
The first movie that the director directed. He's actually currently making another movie that sounds terrible.
What's it called? Lycan Colony, the Colony-ing? I don't know.
Damaged Disciples. It's about I'll just give you the first little bit of.
I heard the title.
It's about an anal retentive atheist social worker. That's all I need to say.
So wait, is it like a Christian movie or a not Christian movie? Could be either.
Well, he stumbles upon a society of angels and demons blending in with humans, and he has to help. But what side will he take, good or evil?
It says he's an atheist. He'd be like, okay, I'm out. See ya. I gotta go be a dickhead on Facebook.
I don't believe in any of you, so peace.
I'm out. My lack of belief defines me, and you're all definitely gonna hear about it.
Now, it's funny because the one of the actors in the movie, the one who plays the mom, and I'm gonna try and say her name, and it's really gonna come out wrong. Cadrolsha.
What?
That's her first name. Kadrolsha.
Her parents were hippies.
Her last name is Carol. So
okay, so Carol Baskin.
No. She has actually been in quite a few movies. Usually just little, bit parts, waitress and businesswoman and stuff like that. But she was in The Rise of Skywalker as a stormtrooper.
No, what?
She was in...
Wait, what?
Yeah, she was in Game of Thrones.
She was?
As one of the Wintertown women and a North woman rider. She was in Captain Marvel as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. She was in a couple of the John Wick movies. She was an assassin in John Wick 2.
This is the mother?
Yeah.
The one who said your dad's brain damaged drunk?
Yep. Yeah, she was a reporter on Friday Night Lights. She was in Spider-Man 3.
This is some big stuff.
She was a teen girl at Beach in Jaws.
Really?
Yeah. And she was a homeless woman in Independence Day.
And she was in Lycan Colony, so that wipes all of that
out. Pretty much. There's just so much about this movie. The soundtrack to this movie, it's like they hired your neighbor's kids' band to play their garage rock for the movie. That's the soundtrack. That's most of it anyway.
This little light of mine, or however that song goes over the credits.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible movie, but it is a great riff.
It is a great riff.
I had to stop and rewind a couple times because I was laughing so hard that I missed the next joke or two that they said. And they did one of our favorite things in this. They left in a lot of the reactions from the guys.
Yes.
To the movie and to the other jokes. And like you really felt like you're watching it and experiencing this movie with them.
I really hope they keep doing that. I really do hope they keep doing that.
It adds so much to it. I mean, it's like, okay, I prefer the live shows the most because you get the audience energy. The jokes, the riffs where they leave in the reactions from the guys to the movie, that's my second favorite.
Yeah, that's style. I hope they keep doing more of that because, like, when it's not there, you miss it.
Yeah.
We need all the laughter we can get these days. Hashtag 2020. What's August gonna bring us?
Oh man, I don't know about what August of 2020 is going to bring us, but I know what happened 4 years ago, Dave.
Oh, geez, yeah. So I guess we're going to talk about this.
You are kind of known for a series of books that you've made.
Yes. 5 years ago, I came up with the idea to draw my own parodies of Mystery Science Theater and RiffTrax movies, and later became just RiffTrax movies. I've done 4 volumes of them. It's called Mystery Science Storybook, Bedtime Tales based on the worst movies ever. And they were featured at RiffTrax Live in the digital goodies for years. And it was great fun. And one of the movies that I parodied in volume 1, this was 5 years ago now, it was a parody called Attack of the Birds, a parody of Birdemic Shock and Terror. And it was a good one. It has a lot of really great art in it, and it has a lot of it has one of my favorite storybook jokes in it, where they're fighting the birds, and Natalie says to Rod, it's like, "Oh no, what do we do now?" And Rod says, "Oh, let's go talk to Dr. Jones. He lives in the redwoods not far from here." Then Natalie says, "How will that help us?" And then Rod says, "Who am I, the answer man? Let's just go." That's I find that quite amusing. Here I am telling you what my favorite jokes in my own stuff is. But the thing is, these parodies, they're only 12 pages long, and there's 12 of them, so it's 144 pages.
Gross.
Like there's Manos in there. There's a crossover of Harry Potter and a crossover of Harry Potter and Twilight. There's The Room. There's just like a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Sorry, I had to throw in that math joke.
But anyway, so the volume 1 had been out for about a year and a half, and I was getting ready to go to RiffTrax Live Mothra. I mean, this is related. I know I like to give Jeremy a hard time about that. I make that joke all the time on this podcast that I've been to RiffTrax Live and Jeremy hasn't, but it's actually super relevant now.
It is.
it's literally part of the story. I'm getting ready to go to RiffTrax Live Nashville, and I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting at my computer in my living room, and I suddenly get this email like James Nguyen has sent you a message request on Facebook, and I was like, what? So I go, let me bring it up. I have this screen grab saved for all time.
And this happened on August 17th.
Yeah, this happened. This happened in 2016. This happened on. It says here 7:55 p.m. So it was pretty early-ish in the evening because I stayed up arguing with him but okay, I'm getting ahead of the story. It says James Nguyen. Dear Mr. David Chadwick, a.k.a. Sugar Ray Dodge. And I'm like, oh, he knows my name. He knows both my names. Dear
Ooh.
Mr. Chadwick, by publishing, quote, Attack of the Birds chapter in your, quote, Mystery Science storybook, you are committing copyright infringement. Exclamation point, comma, fraud and misrepresentation. We demand that you immediately cease and desist. He spells ceased. C-E-A-S-T. Ceased. Not cease, ceased. Ceased and desist from further. Now, if he had spelled it, he spells it that way throughout all our, throughout all the, I'm just going to read this, but, because I went and I was just like talking to him. But anyway, okay, I'm going to finish reading this. We demand that you immediately cease and desist from further distribution of your Mystery Science storybook that contained the unauthorized chapter Attack of the Birds, close quote, exclamation point. From today, August T7, I don't know what that's about.
Oh, yeah, I did notice it wasn't a 1.
2016, we are giving you 15 business days to comply to cease and desist, he says that again, from further distribution of your Mystery Science storybook. If you do not comply, we will file a $10 million lawsuit against you for copyright infringement. Sincerely, it's signed the company Moviehead Pictures. Sincerely, Moviehead Pictures, 7114 Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood, California, 90046. Okay, that is a Mailboxes Inc. We Google Earthed it. Now, when I get this, and I'm like, okay, this is obviously some kind of hilarious joke, right? I thought that because I was going to RiffTrax Live, as I said, I was getting on a plane in like 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Connor Listoka and Sean Thomason pulling a prank on me. Because right here is like when I saw a $10 million lawsuit, I was like, okay, RiffTrax is pulling a prank on me. Right? And so I write back, like, just to cover my butt, I would be like, this is fair use. And I'll just summarize because we had a long interaction, to say the least. And he's just sitting there just threatening me, haranguing me. And after a while, I'm like, okay, this really isn't RiffTrax. This is really James Nguyen. I'm really talking to an insane person here who thinks that I've wronged him somehow. So after a while, it just becomes abusive on his part. And I just like, okay, I'm ignoring him, right? The next day, like it wouldn't stop. Like, he kept sending me all these threats all the way through. Like, I'm basically fighting him while I'm traveling to Nashville. Okay? And by the time I get to Nashville, he has filed a DMCA, a Digital Millennium Copyright Act complaint against me on Amazon. And Amazon is forced to take the book down. Now, also keep in mind at the time I was in the middle of a little bit of a promo blitz because I was trying to, I had experienced A little bit, not a lot, but probably the most success of any, because I'd written prose novels and stuff before that. Never really went anywhere. This is like the first thing that I had done creatively that got a lot of attention, that actually sold a lot of not just physical copies and but digital copies. And I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was starting to make a profit. So I was doing a little bit of a promo blitz, and I think that's like the day before this happened was when I released a graphic that said Birdemic, Shock and Terror, a parody, because I was publishing the graphics for each parody one day by day. And I think that's how he saw it, because I put hashtag Birdemic on Twitter, and that's how he saw it.
Yeah.
So like the next day this happened. So that's how he found out about it. Even though this had been a big deal, within the Misty fandom, sort of, because like I'll still get people who have no idea that this happened. I was trying to build on this, and eventually I wanted to turn it into kind of like my own thing. But for the time being, I was just kind of like milking the fan base. I mean, I don't know how bad that makes me sound, but just like, but like I was just like, okay, I'm going to keep giving the people I know that are fans of the series, I'm going to give them like more of what they want. And actually, the comic for the RiffTrax Live Mothra was the digital goodies that night. It was a crossover between Mothra and Crater Lake Monster called Crater Lake Mothra. So anyway, I'm also in the middle of that big kind of like promo social media blitz to raise awareness of Storybook. And by the time I get to Nashville, I land in Nashville, and the book's been taken down. Like now the Digital Millennium Copyright Act was designed for piracy, kind of like putting movies and stuff up on YouTube.
Yeah.
It wasn't intended to censor parody. Parody is protected speech by law, which is what Mystery Science Storybook is. James Nguyen is the first creator that I have encountered, and I've encountered many of them. David Giancola, who's been on our show, Rick Sloan, Greg Sestero from The Room, like everybody who is aware of that they've appeared in Storybook has been nothing but enthusiastic and supportive of it. James Nguyen was the first to throw a bitch fit. And he basically killed the brand.
Yeah.
Because I'd lost all the momentum. I lost all the Amazon presence that I had. And at the time I was just like, I'm going to fight this. And I put this big thing up on, like, updating everybody on my website and on social media. It's like, this is what's going on. Take a stand against censorship, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And it was at this point that I contacted you about it.
Yeah.
Because I was following the whole Sugar Ray Dodge thing on Facebook. And I saw that. So I know I sent you a message about it. And you filled me in. You gave me all the information. And I actually put up a post about it on my
PB and Awesome, which I very much appreciated, which was, and that's the thing. Reaction to it was mixed. Like, my immediate fan base were very supportive. The creators, David Giancola and Rick Sloan, were both extremely outspoken on the subject. They're like, this is bullshit what's happening to Dave. Over on places like Reddit, not so much.
The cesspool?
Yeah, it was this really kind of like mixed bag. And you also got to understand that I had spent, like, Storybook at this point in my life is basically the number one thing in my life. It's what I'm doing. It's what I at that point had been spending a year and a half doing. It took 4 months of like 14-hour days just to create volume 1. And it was my life. And it had just been taken down. It had just been yanked down, taken away from me unjustly.
Yeah.
And the way the DMCA is structured, Amazon didn't want to hear from me. They refused to talk to me about it. They're required by law through the DMCA. James Nguyen can punch a button and no investigation, anything, no appeals. Well, you can appeal, but I would have had to go to court to appeal,
which
this.
is ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know if this person wants me to say his name, so we'll just say somebody quite a lot of Misties and RiffTrax fans would know. If I said this name, you would know who it was. You'd be like, oh, really? Hooked me up with a lawyer. And this lawyer wanted me to pay him. Like, I got on the phone, I was talking to this lawyer. Now, I'm making some money from Storybook, but not a lot. And certainly not enough to send him a $500, send James Nguyen a non-binding $500 cease and desist letter.
Yeah.
I don't I don't have that kind of, I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's just the reality of the situation. I don't have $500 to send James Nguyen a real cease and desist. I don't have a mechanism through which I can defend myself except through the court system.
Right.
But what good is that going to do? The damage has already been done. My stuff has already been taken down off of Amazon. My presence has been completely wiped out. So I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, James Nguyen won. He killed that brand.
He did exactly what he set out to do.
Yeah, and I had no recourse. Like, he got to push a button and not really be believed, but like the robot, like, I doubt that there was a human being. Like, I got some nasty letters from Amazon telling me that, like, I was this big bad copyright infringer, and that if I did it again, they made me be like, now if you sign this and your other, like the original version of Storybook that had like all the sales associated with other Mystery Science Theater 3000 merchandise and all that stuff, everything that had populated on my Amazon author page was gone. Like, they associated me with like Mike Nelson, Kevin Murphy, Connor Listoka, Bill Corbett, and Greg Sestero, like all this stuff. And all this stuff on Amazon they were driving people to, like, the algorithm was driving people to Storybook and like my author page and this stuff. And I was appearing, go to like stuff on Amazon, also recommended Sugar Ray Dodge, Mystery Science Storybook, and like all my other things. I was like, wow, this is great. Like, all my hard work's finally paying off. And then not. It was awful. And I know one of the big things on Reddit was that, like, you know, people were criticizing my art, saying that it looks like, you know, clip art and stuff, and that
Right.
I was just mooching off. One of the big things that people like the critics of me during that time was that I was mooching off the hard work of others, that I was just trying to cash in. I was creating a product that people would want to buy. And it was legal. Nobody had a problem with what I was doing.
Right.
It's hard to articulate. I love RiffTrax. I love Mike Nelson, Kevin Murphy, and Bill Corbett. Like, that organization, RiffTrax, is a huge part of who I am. Being a RiffTrax fan used to 100% identify who I was.
Yeah.
It still does, maybe not 100% anymore, because I'm doing some other things, and some of those other things are probably not coming back. But it's definitely still a huge, huge part of who I am. When I first started it, I contacted RiffTrax. I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. And they're like, hey, cool, awesome. And then they asked, hey, can we feature this in, you know, the digital goodies for RiffTrax Live? And I was like, F yeah. So that was a really, really cool thing to be a part of. And when that got taken away, it was really hard. And then to hear other RiffTrax fans make these comments about me that it was hard. It was really really rough to how they say don't read the comments. I did. I had to. It was bad. And also one of the things that I learned is that, outside, I brought it up earlier, outside my initial fan base, when people are getting censored, like, how there's that old saying that be like, oh, just censor somebody. That's the best publicity you can give them. I'm here to tell you that's not true.
It's not true.
It's not true at all. Like, I was like, hey, guys, I'm being censored. No one cared. Nobody gave a shit. It was like, this awful thing is happening to me. And I can't for the coverage that I got, I'm glad that I got it, but it wasn't enough to win. I lost too much ground after that. James Nguyen, I did 2 more volumes after that. Volumes 1 and 2 were out at that time. I was working on volume 3.
Yeah.
But by that point, the damage was done, and I started volume 4, and I still need to send out the Kickstarter and pre-orders for that. It's coming, guys. Don't worry. I haven't forgot about it. It's a thing with the printing, and it's also one of the big reasons why I've decided not to do comics anymore. Number one, it's got to be this is the reason that the brand just died, and I have to move on to other things.
Yeah.
So, and another thing is that comics besides this, the number one problem Storybook had was that it's just really, really, really expensive. And printing full color comics is not like just printing regular prose. Not just from not just from a price standpoint, but from a printing standpoint. I ran into all kinds of problems I didn't anticipate and would continue to run into over the next 5 years. So the Storybook series, it's out there. You can get it on Amazon, but there's not going to be. I haven't announced. I guess I'll announce it here. Volume 4 is more than likely the last volume of Mystery Science Storybook. I've decided that with all the problems that were brought on by it, not only from the production standpoint and how long it takes to make these books and the expense and production problems, but also the fact that just James Nguyen killed it. He murdered it. I don't know how many times I can say that, but I have to move on, and I'm working on another project that's not pro wrestling. I don't want to say too much about it now, but it is. I am returning to prose work, and it's refreshing because I don't have to raise thousands and thousands of dollars just to justify working on it.
Right.
And also, the property is 100% mine. Nobody can justly anyway. Well, James Nguyen didn't justly take down Mystery Science Storybook.
Yeah.
With this one, the project I'm working on now removes that. There's no intellectual property reason, justified or not, that anybody's going to go abuse the DMCA to take my work down. So, those two things, the expense of it and the fact that I own this completely, it's a very refreshing kind of situation to be in after being in that world, that other world, for so long. But anyway, yeah, that's the story that is the rise and fall of Mystery Science Storybook right there. And it's all thanks to our friend James Nguyen.
Thanks, James.
Yeah. So that's a bummer of a way to end the podcast.
Oh man. Well, we do have one thing kind of to mention that'll kind of end it on a slightly higher note. We are going to have a very special guest joining us within an episode or two. And I'm not going to say any names just in case, something happens and
yes,
we can't work anything out.
It's quite big, ladies and gentlemen. I know of who he refers, and you definitely want to be around for the next episode.
Yes. And members of our Patreon will find out who it is the week that we record the episode. They'll find out who it is. So if you want to get that little tidbit of information, go over to patreon.com/trueblueriffcast, and you can throw a couple bucks a month at the podcast and support us, and you can get some fun little things like some bloopers and stuff that I have to remove. Dave saying
the F word.
Yeah. Not stuff like that. It's never any of the real nasty stuff. Maybe the last one that I put was kind of pushing it a little bit. But yeah, you get stuff like that, upcoming shows, behind the scenes stuff. You get to vote on stuff that we talk about. I was going to have a vote up last week for this week's episode, but with work and everything being crazy, it just...
don't worry about it. Yeah. So we will get back to the listener polls after our special guest.
Yes, after our next special guest, and maybe after our next special guest after that, just because they might be pretty close together. So yeah, right. Patreon.com/TrueBlueRiffcast. If you want to support us in any way, you can do that there. I'm Jeremy. You can send me emails, Jeremy@TrueBlueRiffcast. You can find me on Twitter @PBandAwesome. You can also follow the podcast @TBRiffcast.
And I'm Dave Chadwick, a.k.a. Sugar Ray Dodge. Check me out on the web at sugarraydodge.com. Send me emails at dave@trueblueriffcast.com. I got it right that time.
Yay! He didn't have to do it multiple times. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. We will see you guys next time on the True Blue Riffcast.
Rock till you die!